Good evening, Super Horror family and guest. As many of you know, I was injured last year. It took months of therapy to regain function in my elbow, but here I am feeling much better. In that time, I didn't check my channel email. I figured nothing would be there because I wasn't promoting it. Well, I recently checked and found out I had many emails from people with their true encounters. If you have any mysterious, supernatural, or paranormal experiences you want to share with the Super Horror family, please email them to me. If you don't explicitly give me permission to share your name, I will gladly share your account anonymously to respect your privacy. This paranormal account was sent in by Philip Hayden. I recently discovered your channel and have been binge watching it as I've been off work due to an injury the past month. I absolutely love the encounter stories and animation. Everything that happened in this story I'm about to tell really happened. My wife, son, and I all witnessed it, though I was the only one to see the clear, transparent being, or Glimmerman, as some would call it. A lot of strange things happened there. This encounter happened when I was very young and had just got out on my own with a job and a family. I got married at the age of 22. My wife was 18 at the time, and our son was about 2 years old. We moved into a newly built house located in a very secluded wooded area in central Kentucky back in 2001. Our reason for moving here was for the peace and quiet. And the location was beautiful. From the front of the place, all you could see was trees and knobland, and the one-lane road going past the place. Then in the back was a clean backyard that was separated by a fence. On the other side was knobs, cattle grazing, with woods in the background. The place was surrounded by woods as far as you could see. The cattle belonged to our landlord. My wife and I both worked second shift through the week and got off work late at night, about 11:30 to 12:30. On weekends, we were both usually off work. We had lived here for 5 to 6 months. During this time, we all had some odd things happen, but none of us really paid much attention to it. It was only until after the main occurrence happened that I had to look back and remember just what all happened leading up to the next events. One Friday night, my wife and son went to bed at about 11. I decided to stay up and play on the computer for a while, since we both didn't have to work the next few days. My son was scared to sleep by himself, so we let him sleep sometimes with us. My wife and son had been in bed for about 30 minutes when I heard her scream out my name, yelling for me to come. I got up from my desk and ran down the hallway into the bedroom and flipped on the light. I seen my wife and son's faces. They looked petrified. I asked them, "What's wrong? What happened?" My wife said the bed started shaking. At that time, I didn't believe in ghosts or the paranormal, so my first reaction was, it was probably our dog. We had a small Maltese. I thought he may have gotten on the bed and shook it. My wife said it wasn't the dog. The bed literally came up off the floor and began shaking. I didn't want to laugh and make fun of her, so to make them both feel better, I checked under the bed, in the closet, in the bathroom, and I didn't see anything. I told them I was only going to stay up for a little bit longer, and I'll come to bed. If anything happens, just yell at me. I was just in the other room. They went back to bed, reluctantly. I finished up what I was doing a little later, and went to bed. The next morning, my wife and son got up early to go to town for groceries. I decided to stay and sleep in, so I went back to sleep, and they left. A little later, I was awakened by the bed shaking. At that time, it did not register. I didn't even open my eyes. A second time it happened. The bed shook a little bit harder. Still, it did not register. But I opened my eyes and then closed them to go back to sleep. It was when it happened a third time. The bed shook violently this time, and it finally hit me. What had happened the previous night. When it registered, I opened my eyes and sat straight up in the bed looking towards the front of the bed. It was only because of the early morning light shining through the bedroom window that I think I was able to see it. The only way I can describe it is it was a clear, transparent being in the shape of a person that stood 6 feet or taller. The way the sunlight hit it made it sparkle in a way. When I saw it, I was filled with an overwhelming sense or feeling of fear and dread. I could see its arms extended to the front of the bed rail, where it had been shaking the bed. When I was a kid growing up, my parents were very religious, and always told us kids if we ever encountered a ghost or spirit to command it away in Jesus Christ's name. So in that moment, I said, "In Jesus Christ's name, leave me alone!" After saying that, I instantly jumped out of the bed and ran out of the room, down the hall, into the living room. I kept a handgun on the very top of our dresser, hidden and loaded for home defense. I was so scared, I didn't think about it. I ran right past it. After I made it to the living room, I was then met by my wife and son, returning home from the grocery store. My wife saw me and kept trying to talk to me, and I couldn't respond. I had tears in my eyes, and I just couldn't speak to what just happened and what I'd seen. Finally, she asked what was wrong with me. She said I looked like I'd seen a ghost. I told her. We stayed there for another week, and then moved. During that week, we wouldn't go in the house at night until we were all together. We'd leave at the same time every day. At night, we all slept on the living room floor together, with all the bedroom doors closed. We wouldn't even go to the bathroom alone. After we moved, looking back, we all had several strange and unexplainable things that happened there before the incident. One time I was home alone. I had the television turned off and was on the computer sitting at my desk. I'd do this to enjoy the peace and quiet when my wife took our son to visit the grandparents. While I was sitting there, I heard heavy movement behind me, as if someone large or heavy was taking steps behind me. I remember feeling the movement. When I turned around to look, nothing. Another time I was alone and heard a knock at the door. I was only 4 or 5 feet away from the door when I heard the knock. I got up instantly to answer the door. When I opened the door, there was nobody. I used to get off of work before my wife did, and I'd get home first. She would get off and go pick up our son from her grandparents' house. When I'd get home, between 12:30 and 1 a.m., once a week, I'd go outside on the back deck and use our gas grill to grill steaks, onions, and peppers for us to have a late dinner together. I know this always made my wife happy. One night while I did this, I left the back door wide open and stood outside in the dark, grilling steaks. I remember it got unusually quiet. So quiet, in fact, it was scary, and I got a sense that if I didn't go inside, something bad was going to happen. So I quickly turned off the grill and left everything and just went inside. I don't know why, it just made sense. At this time, with the door wide open, I could have let something into the house, but I just didn't think about things that way or believe in any of that stuff at the time. My wife experienced these things too. On several occasions, my wife said she would be in the shower or dressing. She'd get a feeling as if she was being watched. Another time, my wife and I were asleep in our bedroom, and our son was asleep in his room. My wife woke up suddenly and had the need to check on our son. He wasn't in his bed. She went into the living room where she found the front door was unlocked and wide open. Our son had gotten up sometime during the early hours of the morning and unlocked the front door and went outside. She went outside to find him. He was running around with our dog in the back and side yard, soaking wet because it had been raining. She ran to him and had to shake him. It was like snapping him out of a trance. He said he thought he was dreaming. At the time, we took it as if he was just sleepwalking. Later, he said he'd had dreams of flying and floating at night. He wasn't afraid. He was 2 years old and thought he was being a superhero. The townhouse that we lived in was new and not scary looking at all. But when I think about the deep woods around it, the knobland, I can't help but thinking of many stories I've heard of encounters and the missing people in the 411 books. Ever since the encounter, not a day has passed in 20 years that I don't think about it and question myself. What was it? At first I thought it was a ghost. Then I thought it was demonic. But anymore, I'm wondering if it was technology, or even a cryptid. I had ran across several other reports of people seeing and giving the exact same description as what I encountered. Clear, transparent, or looking like saran wrap, or heat rising on a hot summer day. I've heard it described as the Glimmerman, which makes sense if you've really seen one, because they have a shimmer to them. Besides being transparent, some people think they're demons. Some think that they are cryptids. Some think they're reptilians. And others think it's possible that they're Sasquatches. I know what some of you are thinking. Sasquatch? Bigfoot? With cloaking? How's that even possible? Easy if our government or military decided they wanted to capture and weaponize the creature. After 20 years, I've read and researched as many books, sightings, and people stories as probably anyone has. I still have more questions than I have answers, and I can't explain what I've seen. There just isn't any answers. I try to occasionally bring it up to my wife and son. They don't look at it the way I do. They don't like to talk about it. But they both remember it. My wife is afraid that just by talking about it, it'll invite it back into our lives. The experience affected all of us, to the point that we cannot sleep without having a television or light on at night, and my wife has to have a fan on for noise. I hope my story is helpful, or entertaining at least. If anyone else has seen or experienced these clear, transparent beings, please write and share. Please feel free to message me with any questions and to use my name. Thanks, Philip Hayden. Our next encounter is called I've Seen Black-Eyed Kids. I was born and raised in Texas and heard the stories of black-eyed kids when I was growing up. But they were just stories people told to scare each other. I even remember a few kids saying they'd seen them. No one believed those kids. Anyways, the summer of 2006 was the first summer I had my provisional driver's license. This was a big deal. Of course, my family had only one car, so I couldn't just take off. But if some friends were going to a movie or something, when my dad would be home from work, I would be able to drive myself there. I got used to planning to do things at night because that's when I would be able to use the car. And without noticing it, I started staying up later and later. This one night in mid-July, I was awake in my room, bored. I figured I'd go drive to the store and pick up a sandwich. I didn't really want one, but it sounded better than just sitting in my room. It was about 11, and my license wouldn't allow me to drive after midnight, so I got right to it. When I got back from the store, I was about to unlock the house door when I heard a voice ask, "Can we come in?" It jump-started my heart. As late as it was, no one was ever really out at that time. But even worse, I just parked the car and walked to the front door and didn't see anyone around. Where was this person then? I turned around and saw them. 2 kids, a boy and a girl. The little boy asked again, "Can we come in?" "It's important." That's when I noticed their eyes. Both of them had pitch black eyes. And I don't mean just where the color would normally be. I mean there was no white, no anything, just blackness. I quickly unlocked the door and ran inside my house. I knew the legends, but I didn't know what to do. Only that I shouldn't let them in. So I went and knocked on my parents' bedroom door. My mom sleepily shouted if everything was okay. I didn't want to look crazy, so I just asked her if she had called me. She mumbled no and went back to sleep. I knew she was safe, so I went and made sure all the doors and windows were locked. I didn't give them permission, so they shouldn't be able to get in, I thought, and I locked myself in my room. I know some people say these are demonic beings, and they're attracted to bad energy, but I wasn't out to do anything bad that night, so maybe sometimes they are following bad energy. But that isn't always the case. That's it for today's story, Super Horror family. A special thanks to everyone that sent in their true accounts. Just because they didn't make it in this time doesn't mean they won't make it into a future episode. And if you haven't sent in your creepy true encounters yet, please do. Send them to superjunkshow@gmail.com. Even if nothing paranormal happened in the story, don't worry about it. Stalker stories and eerie vibe stories might get their own special episodes. I hope you all enjoyed hearing about these encounters. Until next time, you are important, so take good care of yourselves. Good evening.